All right. So we're continuing on with the Imitation of Christ. We're on page 224, book 3, Interior Conversation, and chapter 56, Bearing the Cross, that we must deny ourselves and bear the cross with Christ. Right? Deny ourselves, this is that ego denial. This ego self must be denied. And bear the cross with Christ means going through the suffering of that death to our ego, you know, as in the same way that Christ carried it to set us free, we carry it through the process of ego elimination and dying to the self. And they use that in the Christian scripture, New Testament, especially the Apostle Paul. He likes to use that word or that reference a lot. Unless you die to yourself, you cannot, you cannot enter the kingdom of God, or just that whole notion. He says that in that one verse, it is no longer I who live, but it's Christ who lives in me, right? And it's not that Christ moved in there. It's that all of us are built in the image of God, and that's what we return to. And that's what Christ was. He was the purest image of God, like all of the incarnations. Each time that he has come, he is always the purest image of God. That's why it's like looking through a hole in egoism to see God. That's what an avatar is, or an incarnation. All right, my last sip of coffee, maybe. All right, chapter 56. Christ is speaking. He says, "My child, as much as you can abandon your self-love," that's egoism, "so much will you be able to enter into me. As the longing for nothing exterior brings you peace, so does the complete surrender of your inmost self unite you with God." Right? So this abandoning our self-love to the point at which we can stop me and mining all the time, to the extent that we can do away with me and mine, to that extent we enter into that sacredness, that sacred relationship with Christ, enter into Christ. And as the longing for nothing exterior brings you peace, right? There is no peace of mind to those who are chasing desires. They're riding the waves, and so they're just constantly up and down, up and down, up and down. As the longing for nothing exterior brings you peace, so does the complete surrender of your inmost self unite you with God, because that is the death of ego, the giving up that inmost self, that inner world, that separation from God, the space where you think and act as if God is not present. Surrendering that completely unites us with our nature, which unites us with God. That is the image of God that was placed in each one of us at our imagined creation. You must learn perfect renunciation of your will to mine. Right? Well, actually, if you learn perfect renunciation, your will is God, is God's will. Our will would be God's will if we had not confused it with the lens of egoism, the lens of me and mine. Once we get rid of that lens of me and mine, then God's will projects through us. God's will is what remains, because we're creatures of love and wisdom. And so when we come to know that, we act from that. Without contradiction or complaint, follow me. I am the way and the truth and the life. Without the way, no human being can go. Without the truth, no human being can know. And without life, no human being can live. Right? So this is he's the way, right? So the way is of what? The way to illumination, the way to waking up. It is through that relationship with the incarnation in all the traditions. Bhakti yoga is that path forward. And so the way is the way that they manifest, the way that they live, showing us what an egoless self is like, and going forward in that. And the truth, that again, that integrity, and the life, right? Existence itself. And you can say the life in the sense of the joyful life, or the fulfilled life, the meaningful life, right? I am the way, secure from danger, the truth that cannot deceive, and the life that will never end. I am the straightest way, the supreme truth, the genuine life, the blessed life, the uncreated life. If you keep my way, you will know the truth, and the truth will deliver you, and you will possess everlasting life, right? So I am the way secure from danger, right? So if you're following this way, your suffering is going to come closer to an end. It will become more and more subtle until it disappears, but it won't completely disappear until realization. I'm the way secure from danger, the truth that cannot deceive, right? This is that shining light of Satchit Ananda that is always true and self-correcting in ourselves. That's why attention to our faults is really all that's necessary, to name them, to become aware of them. And as we do that, while settled in the practice of sitting in the presence of God, we become, as a natural process of being in the sunlight of God, we get that spiritual tan that we talk about. So this act of surrendering is all that's necessary. You don't have to build anything. You just have to unbuild, dismantle the walls that you have put up. And when they're finally taken down, then you slip into that beautiful state of being, of freedom. And the life that will never end. I am the straightest way. So the fastest way to God is through the incarnation. The straightest way, the supreme truth, the genuine life, right? That guileless life of having no motive. It's having no motive because you are content in and of yourself, so there is no lack within you. The genuine life, there is no agenda within you, right? When you're just simply coming from a space beyond thought, so it's not a calculated space that we inhabit. It's a free expression in the moment of what we are. So that's the most genuine life, the blessed life. That expression of love and wisdom will always bring good karma, will always bring positive fruit into your life. The uncreated life. Wow, this is a great one. A life not constructed by egoism, not planned and constructed by desire. That we build our life, I build my life. Doing that. And this was what I was really confronted with myself this last week. There's lots of places in the world that I wanted to go and work, and to submit myself to my monasticism, to my monastic vows, and to just accept what I had been told and go. And that was part of my reason. Not part of my reason. That was my reason for doing it, because I thought if I break with it and make my choice and do what I want to do, that is making my ego king. It's taking my self-actualization out of the hands of the divine and placing it back in my own self. And so I thought this is part of the reason that monastic orders exist. It's a way of surrendering your self-actualization, for a way of surrendering you building your life and choosing your life and making it happen the way you want it to. So the uncreated life, that is God. If you keep to my way, you will know the truth, and the truth will deliver you, right? From our bondage, you'll be set free, and you will possess everlasting life, right? You actually have everlasting life anyway, but you will know of it. You will know of it. That's why Jesus says the wages of sin is death, because the wages of sin being body and mind identity, that's what causes us to be selfish and to have our desires and to search after them. And if you live attached to your body and mind as being yourself, then as they die, as they fall away, you will experience them as being yourself. You will think that you are dying, and you will experience what it is to die. And it's not until after that process is finished that you are still there, and you're like, what happened? But if you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments, right? Keep the commandments. The short way of saying that, what is the commandment? To love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's really the one all-inclusive command. If you can surrender yourself to the absolute realization of that one command, everything else comes into alignment. Everything is built off of that one command. You can break it into as many as you want. All of them are implied by that one golden rule. If you want to know the truth, then believe me, right? I'm not lying to you. I have no motive to lie to you. These incarnations, they don't store up for themselves. They're not building castles for themselves. You can trust their message. Their message is to set you free. They have nothing to gain from it whatsoever. Actually, they've sacrificed everything for it in the truest degree. So he says, if you want to know the truth, then just believe me. Just accept my words. What I'm telling you is true. And through that belief, through that strength in me and that grace from me, you will find success. You will find success. No matter how long and how hard you've been fighting, you will find success. And I think this is one of the most powerful things about love, about divine love, is that even when you've given up on yourself, even when you think, oh God, really? Even when you've given up on yourself and you're embarrassed to go to God, you're embarrassed to get up and try again, you can know that somewhere God believes in you still. God has not given up and will not give up on you. If you wish to be perfect, right? If you really want to go to the mountaintop, go sell your possessions, right? He's saying this is for those inspired to monasticism. If you want to do that, as close to perfect as we can get, go and sell your possessions. And if you want to be my disciple, deny yourself. Deny your egoism, deny your desire, deny anything that your mind tells you need from the outside. Turn completely within for all of your satisfaction. If the possession of eternal bliss is your aim, you must despise this present life. You must see it as for the bondage that it is. We have a love for this life. There's no doubt. We love it. And we come back to it not because we're forced back into it. We reincarnate not because God demands that we reincarnate. We reincarnate because we grab another body. We want the experience. We want to have a kingdom of our own. And so we want the tools to build it. So we grab our bodies and back we come, whatever body we happen to grab. So if you want eternal bliss, if you want that contentment, that joy without a cause, you must despise this present life. You have to give up the idea that there's something here worth coming here for. You have to give up the idea that there's something to be accomplished in this life. Right? You have to let go of all of your stories of what you were going to do when you grow up, and all the stories of what your life has meant to this point, and all of your stories about what the next 30 years are going to hold. You have to let go and find the moment. That's what you have to find. This moment is eternal. So find the moment, find the way of being in this very moment and being blissful. Because if you can't find your bliss in this moment, then you're still under delusion that it exists somewhere to be acquired. It does not. It is within you right now. And so this is how we find that eternal space. You must despise this present life. If you want to be exalted in heaven, then humble yourself on earth. If you want to reign with me, bear the cross with me. For none but the servants of the cross will find the way of blessedness and everlasting life, right? So if you want to be exalted in heaven, all right, that's sort of like when Ramakrishna says, if you have to lust after God, give all of your desires a spiritual spin, right? Give them a spiritual spin, turn them into something that makes you think of God. By using them to remind you to take refuge, using them to remind you to prayer, to remind you to your wholeness, and not to believe them. If you want to be exalted and humble yourself on earth. If you want to reign with me, bear the cross with me, right? Sacrifice your life for others. Live for the thou. That's the whole point of that talk about the calf. that starts out saying me, 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 but then it's killed at first it's set to the plow, it works its whole life, and then it dies, and then they tan the skin, and then it becomes part of the drum. And it's not till finally it becomes a string on an instrument that's plucked that it says thou, thou, right? And so live your life for others, live your life for the well-being of others, and for your own, and for your realization, right? Because realization is perfect unselfishness. So through searching your realization and doing service for the good of the world, you will find the way of blessedness and everlasting life. The disciple answers, Lord Jesus, inasmuch as your way is narrow and straight and greatly scorned by the world, give me the grace to bear the world's contempt, for no student is above a teacher, nor a servant above a master. Right? So just asking for the strength to do it. This world as it is constantly trying to pull you into a state of desire. And society always is making some attempt to get you to pursue that desire, because that's how that's how the powers that be get rich, is by you trying to fulfill your desires, right? And so by getting you to keep fulfilling your desires, that makes you a good consumer, right? And you see how trapped we are, that we don't mind them calling us consumers. We're like, oh yeah, I'm a consumer, right? I'm gonna just get this terrible picture of a parasite just sucking off the planet. I'm just here for my desires. I'm just here for my pleasures. And, that's the thing that's very hard to accept, is that a worldly life is that exactly. It's just a parasitical life of trying to suck happiness out of anything around you. Whatever that is. And that's why he's saying, he's just told us the way to that happiness. And it's the opposite way of what we think. It's not a matter of acquiring and doing. It's a matter of being, and transcending the story of egoism that has excited our mind and made it so loud it doesn't ever quiet down. Let your servant meditate on your life, for there is my salvation and my sanctification. Anything else that I read or hear cannot feed my soul or give me full delight. All right, and that's the attitude when we reach the heart chakra. That's what Ramakrishna says. When you get to the heart chakra, only the talk of the beloved is meaningful to you. You've seen through the temporary nature of everything else, and how every wave comes with a lull behind it. How you can't have more joy in this world than misery, because it's a yin and yang, right? It's a perfect balance. There's the same amount of both in life. And so he says, what's the way out here? Meditation on the life of the incarnation. That's the Lila Dhyana, meditating on the lives of these great incarnations, right? Or of the great incarnation. And through that meditation, you come in touch with that love. You come in touch with the demonstration of that love. You see the level of sacrifice in that life that the incarnation was willing to go through to touch you, to reach you, right? And through that knowledge of grace that becomes your own, through that you become sanctified. It starts removing that desire. It starts removing that longing for finding love in others and finding, your satisfaction in friends and power and pleasure and all of that. You become self-content. You have that bliss button in the heart that you can go and just sit in the shrine and just be like, just enjoy God, enjoy the present. That's the highest form of life. Not because it's selfish, because you're not going to sit there just drooling, enjoying yourself the whole time, but because having that inner fullness like that, from that place, you then begin to act not out of hunger, but out of an overflowing. You start to act out of a love that's coming out of you, and no longer a love for something out there. It's the love within you that's motivating your life. And so you become a blessing to the world, and your life becomes joyful as a byproduct. But you are living a life of sacrifice. Anything else that I read or hear cannot feed my soul or give me full delight. Right? God is that one thing You know, he always reminds me of all those trite little, uh, what do you call those slogans that the church used to throw around on youth group day and whatnot when I was younger. But it's still, even though it's kitsch, it's still very true. You know, that God is the only thing that is fulfilling to us, not because there's this cute little God outside of us that you know is a great imaginary friend, but because God is the very self. And so to please God is to please the very self, and pleasing the very self is to purify it of the notion that it's separate and apart from its beloved. And as that gets cleaned up, as that falls away, we become full of delight. Christ says, "My child, since you know these things and you have read about them, you will be blessed if you put them into practice." Right? So the point is not knowing them, not hearing them, not reading them, not even just believing them. It's practicing them, right? And it's through practice that it becomes natural, right? And the practice is keeping the eyes on God, doing the things that remind you of God, enjoying the presence of God, trying to get you some stamina so that you're always thinking of the beloved. You're always in the company of the beloved. And that's putting it into practice. Anyone who has received my commandments and observes them is the one who loves me. I will love and reveal myself to such a one. Right? So if we are willfully obedient, willfully renouncing things, willfully looking at them and seeing them as they are and not through the story that we want them to be. If we are willing to do that, you know, he says that I will love and reveal myself to such a one. You will see God. You will know the reality of it. It will become your life. You'll realize that it has been your life, that it is that self, right? And and I will make that person sit down with me in the kingdom of my Father, right? And that's not somewhere out there again. That is here. You know, it's the here and now is the kingdom, the here and now seen as it is, the manifestation of love and wisdom and being. And when we come to that place, we sit in the presence of the beloved and see the moment as the will. We understand it. We know it. There's no more fear. There's no more longing. Disciple, Lord Jesus, grant that which you have said and promised may come true for me, and may it be my destiny to earn it. See that he's forgetting grace here, the questioner, our disciple. You know, that grant that what you have said and promised may come true for me, right? It's not a matter of coming true for you. It is you, right? So that it may be true. It's not going to come true. It's not that it's not true now. It's that you have not realized its truth, right? So they worded a little bit because then that forces him to say that it may be my destiny to earn it. No, 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 no. The whole point of the life of Christ is that you cannot earn it. You know, Christ would never have come down here and done all that if that wasn't necessary. If that you know, that sign of love, that sacrifice of himself to demonstrate love, to demonstrate the depth of God's love and the depths of God's will to meet you where you are. He doesn't care. He has done the ultimate to make that point to you. I will go anywhere and I will do anything to bring you to your fullness, to bring you to the knowledge of how I created you, of what you are at your very source. So it's your destiny to realize it, not your destiny to earn it. You can never earn such a thing. What will you pay with? What eternal thing do you have to pay for an eternal life, you know, to pay for eternal freedom? What do you think you're going to earn it with? Everything you have is God's. And just like Nachiketus, when he came into Shraddha, came into faith, he saw that anything you can sacrifice in this world is imperfect. You can't give anything to the Lord that's going to last. He's an immortal being. And so all of your actions in this world are meaningless. That's the reality of it. I have received the cross from your hand. I will bear it even unto death, as you have laid it upon me. Right. So this is what he sees, that this suffering, this challenge that has been placed before him. I accept your cross. What is your cross? That we sacrifice our ego on it. Right. So God gives us that cross for our own sacrifice. The sacrifice of our selfishness, the sacrifice of me and mine is put onto that cross. The life of any dedicated person is truly a cross, but it is also the way that leads such a person to heaven, to bliss, to our natural state. We have begun. We're back to the garden, I like to say. Gets us back to the garden, entering into the kingdom of the divine beloved. We have begun. We may not turn backs upon it, and we must never abandon it. What a great thing as you get up in the morning, read that sentence to yourself. I've begun. I may not turn back upon it, and I must never abandon it. Go running out of the house in full knight armor, jump into your white car, and ride off into the sunset. Let us then all take courage and go forward together. This is Sangha. This is Sangha. Let's gather our courage. Let's encourage each other. Let's give each other strength. Let's look for each other's greatest points and fan them, heat them up, and cover each other's faults, love each other unconditionally to the best that we can, so that we can experience this love in this life. And in that way, we go forward together. For Jesus is indeed with us, right? Is indeed with us in many, many, many forms, as our ideal, as the image of creation, of the created self that is within us, right? In the sense that he has become all of this. The Word didn't just become Jesus. If you read that chapter in John, later in that chapter, it says the Word became everything. All objects, all creation is Word, the manifestation. Right? So this is, and he says, well done, all take courage and we'll go forward together, for Jesus is indeed with us. He's everything. The light that we see is his love for us. It is for his sake that we have taken this cross upon us. Right? So it means that out of an appreciation of the life of the incarnations, of the life of Jesus and Buddha and Rama, out of an appreciation for the grace that they share with us, Vivekananda, many of the direct disciples, if you read that book, They Lived with God, many of those direct disciples, when they that was the one thing that they would say. They were like, there is no way that I could tell you how much this man loved us, how much love Ramakrishna gave to us. You cannot know that. And the same with the Christ, you cannot know the level of love, what it was to be in that presence. To have someone with no judgment, someone with whose only desire was your fulfillment, was your and that's all they would see in you, is your highest ideal, and help you to get there. It's for his sake. It's because of that love, because of that security, because of that forgiveness, because of that gracious attitude toward us of wanting only our betterment and only our joy. For his sake that we have taken this cross upon us. What's that cross again? The killing, the sacrificing of our ego self, our self that believes itself to be separate and apart from the divine beloved. So that is our offering. That is us walking to the hill of Golgotha to be crucified, letting go of our very sense, right? And so any time that we're confronted with our desires, we must rise up and we must deny them to ourselves, right? It's easiest, that denying can't happen without discernment, though. Right? If you think that they're a worthy desire, you're not going to be able to give them up. So you have to see their unworthiness first through your discernment. And then once you see their unworthiness, they don't just drop away, because you've got habit, you've got some scars that are going to push you into their fulfillment, even though you've discerned them to be the wrong thing or the unhelpful thing. So at that point, that's when your renunciation kicks in. After you've done the discerning and it's just simply been the habit that's pushing you into it, at that point you renounce and you just break that habit and create a new samskara that will eventually manifest in the whole thing dropping away, where it's no longer an issue for you. See how our king marches before us, right? That's the point of the incarnation, to show you that it's possible, that this life is possible. And so we follow that. See how our king marches before us, and he will fight for us, right? So that's that taking refuge. I said that, the best way to find our strength inside is through refuge. When we're confronted with our weakness or a desire for something outside of ourselves, the first thing we do is identify that came from body, that came from mind. And we make the statement, I'm not body or mind. And you remind yourself of the discernment that you've done. Well, that temptation has always taken me to a temporary satisfaction. And if it had satisfied me, it wouldn't be here bugging me again. And I've never been better for having engaged in those things all my life. So you remind yourself of the discernment, and then you go inside. You turn your face away from the little looping memory that's causing the desire. You turn your attention away from it and place it where? On the divine feet, on the presence of Christ, or the presence of Mother, or the presence of Ramakrishna or Buddha, as your divine ideal. And you set your eyes on that divine ideal and you say to yourself, I take refuge in you. And you lay down and you know that as long as you think of the Mother, you won't be thinking of the other. And that's how we're saved from being defeated yet again by our desires, right? And so that taking of refuge is terribly important. And it's terribly important to allow yourself to remember that, because that's where the ignorance happens. It's like, you should take refuge, but you sort of don't want to take refuge. That's where the battle is. And it's through that discernment, and then turning your face to Mother, or turning your face to God, has to happen. So let us be ready. So see how our king marches before us, and he will fight for us. Let us follow him courageously, fearing no perils, right? So we don't live a life of fear. We've got the greatest refuge in the world. Let us be ready to die for him in battle, and let us not stain our honor by abandoning the way of the cross, the way of this freedom from egoism, the way of becoming ourselves. Finally, instead of this imagined self, this thought of self. All right, chapter 57, that people should not become dejected when they fall into some defects. Right, this is one of the magic things to me about Brother Lawrence and his practice of the presence of God, is how he said the best way to get rid of that was to not dwell on it. If you fall, if you do one of your bad habits, give expression to one of your desires, don't become dejected. Don't become downtrodden by it. Just look at it, turn to Mother and say, get yourself in a state where you think you can tell Mother, I'm not going to do it again. And if you can't get yourself to say you're not do it again because you don't believe in yourself, then just say, I'm not going to do it right now. And you just keep saying that. I'm not going to do it right now. I'm not going to do it right now. And if you just do enough not right nows, then you won't have done it again. But sometimes if we say, I'm not going to do it again, we think, oh my God, how am I going to go the rest of my life without doing this? I've been trying for so many years. And then it becomes a thing. God never requires faithfulness bigger than the moment. So just be faithful in the moment consistently, and you will get there. So in this moment, turn your eyes to the beloved. And in this moment, find the presence. Christ says, I am more pleased, my child, when you are patient and humble under adversity than when you feel devout and consoled in prosperity. Right? Right? Because, most of the time that we feel devout, it's an illusion, right? Because our most devout self is not devout at all. It's just simply ourself, right? So the thing is that perfection is what we were meant for. That's the zero line. It's not being halfway to perfect that we're trying to achieve, and we get better than halfway and we're devout, and we get less than halfway and we're evil. It's not like that. It's like all of us, the bar of perfection was what we were created for. Be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. That was the standard. And when you fell below that, you had nothing to pay with to bring yourself back up again. It's like when you fail that first test in class, the rest of your semester you get hundreds, right? But you're not going to get a perfect 100 score when they average them all together. It's going to be less than that 100 because you failed that test. There's no way to make up for it unless they give you extra credit, but that's a thing. But anyway, you see the problem. So we have no way that we can cover our sins. There's no way we can feel devout. That's done. We feel devout through grace, right? We feel devout through gift. And so that's what inspires us, is knowing that. And so that's what he's saying is, when you are patient and humble under adversity, and when you feel, I am more pleased, than when you feel devout and are consoled in prosperity, when you're sitting there enjoying your fat, happy spiritual gifts, that inner bliss. You're just sitting there being happy for yourself. He's like, that's wonderful, but I'm more pleased by humility, right? What is humility? That constant denial of separation from God, that constant denial that we're motivated by anything but love. Why are you so upset when someone says an unkind word to you, right? He's saying, why do you take your meaning from the externals? Why do you take your value from the externals? Why do you think that it's your money that makes you a strong person? Why do you think it's your looks that make you beautiful? Why do you think that it's your job that makes you important? Why are you gathering things that will go away to define yourself with? How can the immortal be defined by the mortal? Right? So always, you are beautiful because the love of God is within you. You're worthwhile because the wisdom of the divine is within you. You are holy because you are, at your very core, the presence of God. And that's where we find our value. That's where we find our self-worth. It was a funny thing. Shaving my head. I'm so happy I did it, because boy, I had no idea how attached I was to my little beard and my little hairdo. And then I shaved it off and I realized I looked like an orange monkey, an orange chipmunk or frog. And I sat there and, I got on the plane yesterday with my other hat on, that kind of my monk hat. And I realized how shockingly different I was from everybody else. Because of the looks. I was getting a lot of looks, a lot of people looking at me like, what is this guy dressed all in orange? And, I felt what he's feeling here, that thing. Why are you upset when someone says an unkind word about you? Why do you care what you look like that? So what? When you get to be an old man or an old woman, and you've got these big things growing on your nose and big hairs sprouting out of your ears and jowls that flop when you say no. You've got to find your way past these things, because this is how Mother brings us home, right? She takes all of these things away from us. And so we have to know who we are to find that contentment when we have nothing, when we realize that we have nothing. It could have been worse, but even so, you should not let it disturb you. Forget about it. It is not the first or anything new, and it will not be the last if you live long enough, right? It's a normal thing, is what he's saying. These ups and downs are going to happen. Don't be beaten by them. Don't even pay attention. Forget them and move on. Put on your little shawl of grace and sit in the shrine and just know it all is well. Everything is well, and go forward. Don't kick yourself around the block because you failed or because you're not what you would imagine yourself to be. You are so courageous as long as no opposition comes your way. You can also give good advice and can encourage others with your words. But when some unexpected trouble turns upon your doorstep, your good advice and your morale support fail you, right? So it's like, even though you may be great for helping others, when the tough times come to yourself, you fail yourself utterly. It's like, what's up with that? You've got to imbibe these words within your own self. Words that come out of you should come from overflow. They shouldn't be coming from a place that's hungry itself. They have to come through an overflow. You give love because you're full of love. You sacrifice because you have that which can be sacrificed. And you don't tire because you're infinite. You don't grow weary because you're immortal. And you just keep going. Think over your great frailty, which you often experience in such trifling difficulties. Yet it is for your spiritual help that these and similar things are permitted to happen to you. And this is that great challenge. This is where we use that idea that this moment is perfect. That God is everywhere present and always perfect. And so even this moment, you get posted to an ordinary place. Whatever comes to you, that's by the wayside, because your bliss is what you are. It's not where you are. The bliss is how you are, not what you're doing, in the moment. It's how you're doing it, right? With the thought of the beloved present, with the thought of grace already having taken care of all of your internal need, right? So, an understanding that everything in this moment comes from a source of what? Satchit Ananda. Same thing that created you created the universe. And so everything is motivated by pure love, pure wisdom, and is allowed to express through being, right? Through isness. And so we're able to come to that place when you've gotten rid of the stories of your ego, then the story of being becomes apparent in real time to you. Then the story of love becomes apparent to you in all things, because it's not being blocked out by the egoistic story of self. And so when we begin to see that, then we can accept the moment in all of its difficulties. And we can see that all difficulties belong to body or mind. They never belong to the self, just like all desires belong to body or mind and never to the self. And so this is why we search for the answer to that question: who am I? What am I? What is my nature? What does it mean to be made in the image of God? And we come to know that we're made in love, we're made in wisdom, and we're allowed to express it through being. So think over your great frailty, which, remind yourself, you can't do this, right? If it's done, it is done by grace. And that way you save yourself from collecting ego trinkets by your spiritual success, which is a real danger. And it's a hard one to get out of. If you become spiritually proud, that's a very difficult place to be, because the tools that are meant to alleviate that then are building ego. And so you have to be engaged with grace. You have to know, you have to remind yourself, right? And I think that that's where this habit of calling yourself a wretch comes from. It's like always remembering your frail self. But I don't think that that's the proper way. You don't think about your proper self for very long. You think about it long enough to know it, and then you replace it with the grace of the beloved, because what you think, you become. And I think that's why we see so many leaders fall, is because they're constantly thinking themselves as weak and frail, and constantly seeing themselves as having a sinful nature, rather than remembering that they are the image of God, because what you think is what you become. And if you're always thinking, I'm weak, I'm sinful, then Thakur says, no, for certain, sinful you will become, weak you will become. So instead, we take Vivekananda's advice. I'm ever free. I'm loved by God. I'm immortal. I was never born. I will never die. I mean, we just laugh as we go forward. We see these momentary things, and we see the turmoil of our mind, but we're not attached to the fight even. We see those things come upon us, and we roll our eyes. It's like, oh, there it goes again. There that thing goes again. Right? And we chuckle, shrug, and move on. Go forward. knowing that everything that is permitted to happen to you is permitted to happen to you because it's going to make you better. It's going to whittle away your egoism. Resolve in your heart to do the best you can, right? That's all that's required of you, actually. There is some requirement. It's to do the best that you can. And so always resolve in your heart, right? I'm going to do the best that I can. Then when trials come your way, do not be downcast. Do not go over and over them in your heart. If you cannot manage a smile, at least bear them with patience. Don't get caught. The success is not the point. Keeping your eyes on the beloved through the whole process is the point. Staying secure in the presence of God, despite the conditions of body and mind, is the point. Right? So be in that space. If you've done horrors, don't sit and think about having done horrors, except long enough to say that you won't do them again. You won't do them now, right? And then think about God. Think about the grace that allows that to be your option, that you're able to get up again, that you have the permission to get up again, that you have the permission to try again, and that the divine love still believes in you, even though it's absurd to believe in you. But still, that divine love still hopes in you, even though everybody else has rolled their eyes long ago and said, this guy is hopeless. Right? So no matter how worthless and dejected and foolish you've been, you've got a friend in the beloved who will not stop believing, will not stop hoping, who will not fail you. And so this is where we want to live. And this is how we let our faults remind us of grace, right? To let our faults remind us that we cannot do this ourselves, so that we don't begin collecting spiritual trinkets and saying, I'm good because I have a great meditation. I'm good because I've had certain spiritual experiences. I'm acceptable to God because I've been consistent in my life for 20 years. No, there is one reason that we can approach God, and that is because of the love of God. Nothing else, right? That's why when our maid or the woman, what's her name, Bubari or Bugatti, right? That woman who stung Ramakrishna's feet like a scorpion, she stung like a scorpion because she thought that her having built that ghat, for the people, that having done that good deed made her worthy to come forward and touch Ramakrishna's feet, right? We know that when she first came in, she sat in the back of the room because she knew that the scriptures say that she had been an immoral woman, right? And so she knew she couldn't go forward. But then after Ramakrishna asked her, have you done anything? Have you fed the holy men? No. Have you gone on pilgrimage? No. And then she says, oh, I did build the bathing ghat, for everybody. And Ramakrishna is very complimentary. Oh, very good. You've done that. Oh, that is wonderful. And then she thinks she's worthy. She comes forward and touches his feet. And he yells out in pain and begins hopping around looking for Ganges water to pour on him. And he pours that whole pot of Ganges water over himself. And she says that she sat there struck dead. What does that mean? Her ego died. She was struck with her impurity. She was struck with her mistake. I approached God thinking that I had become worthy, that I had done something that earned that respect, right, or that possibility. But she was immediately humbled. And then the beautiful thing is that Thakur comes over and sits there with her and sings her a song. About what? About how worthy of love she is because of all the gems that lie hidden in her heart. Like that, all of the fact that she is the image of the beloved, that she's the expression of Satchitananda. And he's telling her, what makes you beautiful is hidden from you. It's deep within you. Dive deep, and you'll find these gems that lie scattered outside the door of the shrine of your heart. So he goes and he teaches her, you become worthy by finding these gems of your nature, not by what you do and not by what you express, but by knowing what you are, that you are the image of God. So he says, Even though you feel indignant in your heart, control yourself and do not permit any inordinate word to escape your lips, lest you scandalize the weak. In this way, your indignation will soon calm down and grace will soon return to soothe your hurt feelings. Right? So he's talking about if someone has said something evil about you, right? Don't let your indignancy cause you to say something, unkind to them. Don't let your hurt cause you to start living in retaliation to them. Don't don't sit there and ruminate on what if scenarios where you became a Marvel character and were able to absolutely annihilate your opponent. Don't do it. Right? And in this way, your indignation will soon calm down and grace will soon return to soothe your hurt feelings. I still live and am always ready to help and comfort you even more than before, if you will only fully trust me and devoutly call upon me. Right? So that's all that's necessary. That trust and calling. Take refuge and trust in it. Take refuge in grace and believe it. Know it to be true. Don't even believe it. Know it. It's deeper than belief. Right? If you know that there's a ledge, if there's dirt under your ground under your foot, you'll take a step forward. If you doubt it at all, you won't be willing to take that step forward, right? You'll look down to make sure. So this is a very good thing here to know. The way to success is to fully trust in the grace, trust in the love of God, trust that that is true, and then devoutly take refuge, call upon me. Right? Devoutly means do it without fail. Do it with a deep sincerity, that I'm taking refuge in you. I'm not going to fall into the ways of the world. I'm taking refuge. I'm putting my mind on you. I take your grace. I take your love, and I'm trusting it. Keep yourself calm and even prepare yourself to undergo greater suffering, right? Keep yourself calm. Bring it back to center. Understand that all is well. God is within you. Grace is on you. So be calm and prepare yourself to undergo greater suffering. Root yourself. If you're doing well right now, then root yourself. Sit and ruminate on the divine presence. Use that contentment to go forward, right? It's easier to think about God that way. All is not lost just because you find yourself often in trouble and grievously tempted. Remember, you are human and not God, and you are flesh and blood and not an angel. Okay. I wouldn't. I argue with this book only because it's not scripture. It's written by somebody. And this idea, remember that you're human and not God. No, just don't, because what he's saying here is argue to defend your fall, right? Oh, I'm just a human. What else could I possibly have done? Absolutely not. I am divine. I will burn that out of me like a fire, burns out the bugs. It's like, I'm going to win. I'm going to take this out. Do not justify. You have nothing to say. There is no explanation for your fall other than foolishness, other than you believed something unreal to be real, and you walked into it knowing that it wasn't, right? Don't have another word to say except, I won't do it again. I'm ever free. I'm ever pure. That was a silly and stupid thing to do because I'm not human. Because I am God. Because I am an expression of God. I have that image of God. That is who I am, right? And so hold on to that. So he's giving bad advice here. So let's not accept it truly. When you fall, do not explain it to mother. Oh, mother, what could I do? It just wouldn't go away. It was nagging and nagging and nagging, and I fell. No, don't allow yourself to feel good for it for any reason except that mother's grace has removed it from you and set you free from it. That is your only comfort, right? And do not negate yourself by thinking that you are weak or that it's because I'm only human, I'm not God. That is horrible advice because it gives you the pattern for repeating it again and not feeling so bad about it. right? We don't want that. We want to feel the pain of it. We want to accept the pain of it. And we let go of the pain of it through grace, through the love of God. Do you think you can continue in the same state of virtue when this was not found in the angels in heaven, nor in the first man in Eden? Yes, you do. Yes, you do, because by not believing it, that's how the first man in Eden fell. Right? So, yes, you do. Can you continue in the same manner of virtue? Why would you question that? Does not Jesus himself say, be perfect as my Father in heaven is perfect? That is the expectation. So pick up that expectation and go forward. And when you fail, you apologize, you get up and go forward. And when you fall again, you get up, apologize, and go forward. You constantly do it, always with the expectation, I'm going to be perfect, right? You don't sit there and doubt it by creating a story of failure. You stay in the moment and you hold on, Oh, it's time to go. Look at that. I wondered why Sarah disappeared. All right, so this is the thing. I am he who raises up and supports those who mourn, even lifting up to my Godhead those who know their own weakness. Right? So there's where we have our strength. There's where we have our inspiration. But we always expect that of ourselves. We always, even though it's ridiculous, it is, from almost every angle, it is. It's ridiculous. But this is where growth happens. This is how we reach that pinnacle of pure being, because we do hold ourselves to a standard of perfection. We do constantly try, and we identify constantly with the grace that's within us to keep that alive, to keep that effort sincere, right? We never justify what we do. That takes us deeper into darkness. They're always like, oh, God, let's move on. All right, let me turn off the recorder.